to Lizzie's Workshop and part 2 of my Sprite page. So in part 1, I went into my Canson Mixed Media art journal and I created a background for this Sprite figure, and now I'm starting to draw it. Now I didn't know at first that it was going to be a Sprite figure. I just knew when I was creating the background that I was creating a color dynamic of what I wanted things to be, the colors I wanted to use, and then I started creating this figure. Now when I start drawing a face, I don't decide beforehand that it's going to be male or female, most of the time anyways. And so this time I just kind of pulled it out of wherever and drew the face, and from there I kind of continued on with it to see where it would go after that. Now I drew the base and the chin and the shape of the face, and then I drew some guidelines on there, put in the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the eyebrows, and now I'm going in and taking out the guidelines of what I wanted. And then I'll continue to play with that chin to get it to balance enough to the eye that it doesn't look ridiculous, and put in some eyelashes and some irises, and I just kind of keep adding more and more little detail. Now I figure that she needs a hairline, so I draw in this hairline, and right about here I decide that this is the worst hairstyle I've ever drawn. So I know that this isn't a good hairstyle. I will be changing it, but I decided just to put that in there as kind of a graphic for there will be hair on this face at some point. So I decide I'm going to tinker with the other details of the face. I'll play around with the chin, and in order to try and orient the hair and fix that, I've decided that she's going to need ears, and it's obviously a female face, a feminine featured face. And so all of a sudden she becomes this, little pixie type of thing, and I couldn't figure out, well, maybe she wants wings, maybe she doesn't want wings, we'll wait and see. So I had named all my files to this point Sprite. Now that I have this, little character in there and so on. And so I've called her Sprite, and then at the very end of the video she decides, I need wings, and she becomes a fairy. So I just left it as Sprite for that moment in time, and it's going to kind of stay that way because she's a sprite that dreamed upon a star and became a fairy. I don't know, something like that. Let's call that. Say that that's the story. So I fixed this hair. I really like this haircut. It's much better. I wanted it to be nice and open so that I could have space to add color. And then I decided I'm not going to play with her face anymore. I'm not going to play with her hair anymore. I'm going to put in a body. Now, here comes the tricky part. So, on my desk, I had this picture of a Julia Nutting doll, or I actually had one of them stamped out and paper pieced on my craft desk. And so I went and started drawing her shoulders in, as per just copying the design of the Julia Nutting doll. But nothing was working. The proportions were off. Everything was just a mess. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to draw the bust in first, and the bust will allow me to balance out the waistline. And by creating the bust, that will help me to draw in the shoulders in a more balanced fashion, and so on. I'll be able to establish the length of the bust, the length of the torso, which will help me establish the length of the arms. And so I figured drawing in the breasts first would allow me to have some sort of feature that would establish scale for the rest of the drawing. But this arm, I just keep playing with it, and she just becomes a gymnast, and she's just this amazing, fit person. And I said, no, she's going to be more waif-like her, because her energy and her power and her strength comes from magic. And so I just kind of played with that and finally got the arm that I wanted in there. Now, as you can see, I kind of curved her back in a strange fashion. And so I thought she wants to be a centaurian. She's going to be a mythical creature. She's going to be naked and mythical. And, that was high hopes. So I went in, I was drawing in, and I was trying to figure out the separation of the front legs of this mythical being, and it just wasn't making me happy. So I played with all the curves, and I played with this and I played with that, and it just wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. And I couldn't decide if she was going to be naked or not, so I put in the shadows of the nipple lines and everything. It just wasn't becoming what I wanted it to become. And I even stopped the video and went on the internet and tried to look up Centaurians and figure out this, how I was doing this and what this was supposed to actually look like and where these lines should be. And I just got to the point where I was like, you know what? She doesn't want to be a horse. And it's not that I gave up on the drawing. I think that when I get working on a project for a really long time, I start getting to the point where I just don't want to look at it anymore. And this is what happened here is I didn't want to look at that horse anymore. So I thought, you know what? She doesn't want to be a horse anymore. And then I was still thinking about, okay, well, if she's not a horse, she's going to be this nice feminine creature. We will put a shirt on her. And if she's wearing a shirt, then she doesn't have the nipples showing. And if she's wearing a shirt, she doesn't have, such so much accent in the center of where her breasts are. And then we're going to play with the line of her rib cage and give her a waist and a belt. And then I kept thinking, well, what about this leg separation? I'm right back to where I started with this silly leg separation. And so I decided, you know what, I don't have enough room to really worry about it, so she's going to wear a skirt. And I drew in this skirt with all these wispy things, and I'll show you more about the skirt later on, but this is essentially what I did. I just drew in a bunch of curvy lines until it was a mangle and nice and all that stuff. So now I'm at the point where I'm saying, you know what, I am done. I don't want to fiddle with this anymore. I thought about cutting her out right away, and then I decided, no, I'm not going to cut her out. I'm going to leave her on there and color her on this page first. And then I decided, she went from being naked to being this really, close-necked kind of thing, and I decided to give her a little bit more femininity, drop the neckline of her shirt just a little bit, and put on an amulet type of necklace, give her some collarbones, and so on. And then I reach for my Neocolor 2s and I start coloring in the Neocolor 2s. Now, the majority of the colors that I've used for this painting, most of them are still from the background. So these are a water-soluble crayon, Neocolor 2s, and the color that I started with, like in the background, is called Flesh. And once I got all the flesh activated, you could still see a lot of the white. You could still see the pencil smudges. And I was thinking, you know what? I don't really think that she is this Caucasian. And so I decided she needed some more color. And now I could have gone towards red tones, but I didn't really like that. I could have gone towards yellow tones, but I didn't really like that either. So I thought, okay, well, we're going to go towards the brown tones. And so I reached for apricot, which kind of is it's more of an orange, it's more of an orangey kind of skin tone. And so that's the one that I put over top of the flesh tone, and that is exactly what I was looking for. And so I did this as the overall color, with the flesh color as the base, so that the flesh color would allow me to mix my colors over and over again and allow for that little bit of lightness to come through on the bottom layer. So this paper is watercolor paper. It's probably about 140-pound watercolor paper, and I did not prep it with anything. It's just the watercolor paper, and so it responds like watercolor paper. It's not going to buckle, it's not going to do any of that. It's going to absorb the color. And so my first layer just kind of sucked right into the page. Now I'm reaching for my next color in line, and that is going to be the ochre, which once again was from the background as well. And with the ochre, I'm establishing where the light source is, and I'm establishing where the shadows are. And so there's a shadow under her chin, there's a shadow to the bottom right of everything on the picture, on the drawing. And so that's what I do, is I just keep adding in the ochre until I'm happy with how things go. Now, as you can see, I'm not just drawing it in with the crayon on the page and then activating it. I'm taking it with my water barrel brush straight from the crayon. And the reason that I'm doing that is because I wanted a little bit more control over how the color was going down. And so that's what I do. I just keep layering the color and blending it and layering it and blending it and layering it until I'm achieving the effects that I want. And so there is going to be a little bit of shadow in her armpit. There is going to be a little bit of, heavier line weight here and there. And then after that, I go in with this brown, and the brown is Toledo brown, just like the one that is in the background as well. And I'm just putting in all the deep shadow here, and then I slowly go over it and blend it in. And you can see I keep wiping my brush off, because if my brush gets loaded with too much pigment or too much water, I'm going to end up with pooling of the really dark shades, and I really don't want that. Using these water barrel brushes allows me to add and take away color as I need, and I never have to be worried that I'm stuck where I'm at, because the Neocolor 2s continue to be water soluble and continue to be blendable up until I heat set them or seal them in. So even if I were to let this dry overnight and go in again tomorrow, I would still be able to activate and move the color that I laid down previously. So once again, I'm just going back in with my ochre, and I'm adding in some more shadows, and then going back to the brown and adding in some more shadows. And I'm just creating a little bit of depth. And then I'm going to take my water barrel brush, and I'm going to remove some color from her shoulders at some point, so that she kind of shines a little bit white in her shoulders. So now that I've got that, I'm just going to color in her hair, and that is with ochre. I'm actually really starting to love ochre. I went and I watched some videos of Cinnamon Coonies, and she was talking about how diverse a color ochre is, and I never had an attachment to it. I kind of always thought it was kind of a poor excuse for brown and a poor excuse for yellow, and it wasn't anything I wanted contact with. But in how it worked out quite well with the background, I decided that this would work out really well here too. So I laid down the ochre as the base so that she has kind of a blonde underlayer, and it gives all kinds of nice highlights and hints in there. And then I layered on the Toledo brown over top. The red that I'm adding here is called Light Cadmium Red Hue, and that's also a Neocolor 2. And then I'm going to add it to the cheeks as well, which helps it to blend. And then I do blending with the apricot and blending with the yellow ochre as well. And that just allows it to have a seamless blend. And then I gave her some blue eyes. These blue eyes are the night blue that I used on the background. And I'm going to fill in her amulet in the same color. And then I'm going to take the 3 blues from the background and blend them in through her skirt. Now I started off just kind of adding definition to this skirt randomly with each of the blue tones, and from there I activated them and decided that I needed a little bit of background color, so I smudge it into the white spaces so that there's no actual white space in this skirt. And it turns out to be this wavy, multicolored blue kind of thing. It didn't end up with the effect that I wanted it to end up with, and I'm actually okay with that. It ends up exactly as it wanted to, I guess you could say, and it all worked out. It all turned out quite well. So now I'm just activating it, and these 3 colors are so similar when you just color them down that I was having trouble distinguishing between 2 of them. And so sometimes I accidentally activated the wrong color, and then I had to wipe my brush off because it was the wrong color I'd activated. And then I'd go back in, and I just kept doing that. And so once all of these are activated, I'm going to go across the top, and I'm going to make it so that it looks like there's an underlayer to the skirt as well. Now I have a story about this video, this part 2. I have this part 2 all edited, and I had hit save on it. It was a speed paint. It was all sped up and edited, and I had added music in there so that you wouldn't have to listen to me babble, and everything was set to go, and it would not save. It would get to 66%, and then it would just crash my computer. And so I did all kinds of things. I, did the computer upgrades because I have to do that at the beginning of every year anyways. I, would restart my computer. I got rid of all my caches, and everything computer-wise that I did was not going to work for this video. And so I kind of figure that maybe the music files I have, maybe one of them is corrupt. So in order to avoid 3 more days of fighting with my computer, I decided I would just not really do a whole lot of editing here, and that I would just not put in any music and you'd have to listen to me babble. So I'm sorry if I'm if I'm babbling too much, but that's what ended up happening. After 3 days of trying to get this video to edit and save, and having edited it 5 times, I've decided I'm not putting any music in. You're just gonna have to accept my babbling. So here I am. I've colored in her shirt. I don't want to color in her whole shirt because I do want to allow for some highlights to come out. And so I'm just going to put in the color and then liquefy it, or sorry, activate it. I did a really wonky thing here with like flipping this around this way and that way, and I was trying to get the right curve on the shadow, and it just didn't do what I wanted it to do. So I kind of fiddled with it a little more until it was good enough, and then used the water barrel to pull some of the color out where the light would shine. And it's kind of interesting trying to get the right curve of the light source and trying to get the right curve of the person's body. So this is kind of a unique experience. I guess it's a little bit different on flowers, but I didn't want her to look nice and round. I didn't want her to look too slim, so I was trying to get the right amount of shadow in there, and then I decided not to worry about it, and I was overthinking it, so I just let go. Then I added in the Payne's Gray for the belt and decided that it was too liquidy, and so I dabbed away some of that moisture. And then I liquefied it again to see if I could get just the right amount of color, and then pulled it down into the skirt. So then right at the very end here, I'm all done with her. I've heat set her, and she's decided that she wants wings. So I start drawing in wings, and she says, no, those aren't the ones I want. So I draw in some more wings. No, those aren't the ones I want. And so we compromise. We get a little bit of what she wants, a little bit of what I want. And away we go. So one of the things that I came across here is that she's standing at kind of an odd, cocking her hip a little bit and tilting her head, and she's not a straight line. And if she was a straight line, then I could have given her these perfectly symmetrical wings. But I was struggling with trying to give her these perfectly symmetrical wings. And I got to the point where I was like, you know what? Nothing in a living thing is truly symmetrical, really. And so, whatever, we'll just draw in some wings, and this one will be higher than that one, although it should have been the other way. We'll just do whatever, and she'll be happy with them. She did just earn her wings, so maybe they'll grow a little bit more or change as she gets older. I don't know. But I do like how her wings came out. I was happy with them. And once again, I go in there with my ochre and give her these beautiful yellow wings. I can't believe I like ochre. That's so weird. Thanks, Cinnamon. And so I color them. I activate the ochre with the Neocolor 2s, add some water with this broad-tipped water barrel brush, and then I heat set the whole thing, and I made sure it was quite well heat set. And then I'm going to cover it with some golden matte medium, and that's going to seal her in so that when I go to put her on the page or draw over her or add my Stabilo, anything like that, I don't have to worry about any of these colors moving. So once again, before you brush on the matte gel, you do have to heat set the Neocolor 2s. And you still need to use very gentle brushing motions so that you don't scrub off the color. So thank you very much for joining me at Lizzie's Workshop. If you liked this video or this series of videos, feel free to like, subscribe, share, comment. I love hearing from you, and I hope you have a fabulously crafty day. Thanks for watching.